Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have with us as guest Dr. Marcus Chanay. Dr. Chanay have been in education, have been a leader in education, and he's here with us to share his perspective on how we can make a positive change in our community. Dr. Chanay, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cross. I appreciate the invite. I was really excited about getting the invite, and I appreciate all the things that I have observed with you over these last several years, and your books and all the things that you've done. And of course, when I was at Lincoln University of Missouri, I just watched you just blossom, and now you're running a great program. So again, it's a great pleasure to be here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you being here. So is there anything that you want to share about you, yourself, what you're doing before we get into the conversation?
Sure. So currently, I have basically, after 28 years of K through 12 in higher education, I decided to take a step out. And so currently, I am the president and COO of B1 Ventures and Holdings Incorporated. Basically, B1 Ventures and Holdings Incorporated is a holding company for several companies. One company is B1 Nursing Care. That is a home health company. We have approximately about 60 plus clients. Most of our clients are in the Medicaid, VA arena. We do have some private clients. Also part of the holding company is the Mississippi School of Health Services and Careers. With that, we actually do certificates in allied health programs. Those certificates include CNA, CMA, phlebotomy, medical billing and coding, and we're about to kick off with EKG. We also have a foundation, B1 Foundation, where we raise monies to assist our students so they can further their educational pursuits. With that, we also have taken on a project with another company, another 501c3, Mississippi Move Inc., where we're providing opportunities for the homeless in the Jackson metro area. And then we have two other additional companies. One is Her Philosophy. Her Philosophy is a personal and professional coaching company. It's run by my wife, and it's really a motivational, and she really works with women in helping them conquer the opportunities to actually open up businesses. And then the last company is Mid Sports and Education Group. We are basically a consulting firm that works with everything from K through 12 to higher ed and doing strategic planning, leadership development. And then we also have on the sports end, we have started working with student athletes and helping them really create their brand and primarily help them be able to get out and get some of these endorsement opportunities. So those are the 5 companies that are part of B1 Ventures and Holdings. It's a lot that goes on. Like I said, I serve as the president and COO, but I also serve as the president of the school, Mississippi School of Health Services and Careers, and I served as the CEO for Mid-South Sports and Education Group. We're all located right in Pearl, Mississippi, our offices, which is a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi. So we're right really at the state capitol. And we also work with a number of entities, including the state, in doing training. We're actually training community health workers currently with the State Department of Health. So it's kind of crazy for this guy that is an educator, but when you have a wife that is in the medical field, is a nurse by profession, and we combined our resources and this is what we got. So that's a little bit about me. Previously, I worked in education for 28 years. K through 12, served everything from a high school teacher to an administrator. Then went into the higher ed ranks, and I served as vice president at three different institutions: Jackson State University, Jarvis Christian College, which is now Jarvis Christian University, and my last stay was at Lincoln University of Missouri.
Oh man, thanks. That's a wealth of experience, and with experience comes knowledge, because a lot of what we need to learn is going to come from our experience. So I really appreciate you sharing, and I give the audience or the listeners some perspective to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to get into the questions.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
I think you got to have a positive mindset, to be honest with you, Richard.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, African American men have been perceived as being angry. They've been perceived as not one that wants to take care of their family. And I always say that I think perception has always led us to these negative things. Even when you think about President Barack Obama, what he accomplished, but you would think that that would open up more doors. But unfortunately, people still tone in into the negative part. When you deal with crime, they always say it's going to be an African American young male. When you deal with disparities in education, it's always a young African American male. So I think the key thing is that you've got to be positive, number one, but we have to do more in educating the masses. I think sometimes we don't do that. I think sometimes we kind of set to the side and we do our own thing. And a lot of times you only have a few people who actually see that, but they don't see the masses. And in my experience in higher education, I purposely worked at 3 HBCUs. I purposely really wanted to assist African American males in being able to fulfill the dream of completing their coursework and getting their degree. I've seen young men come into as a freshman and lost, but I've seen with the guidance, with the mentoring, those young men graduating in no more than 5 years, and then going on to successful careers. So I think the perception is that we are basically don't have any male guidance in our lives. We tend to get in trouble, but it's all perception. And I think that is the thing that we have to do from a positive standpoint. We have to get the word out more and more and talk about all of the successes, not just the for example, President Barack Obama, but we have to talk about all successes of young African American men and what they're doing in their communities and how they are family men and all of those things, and Christian men. So we have to really promote the entire African American male population, to be honest with you.
And that's a really good perspective, spreading the word. Yes, we need to be positive, of course, but we need to get in the habit of spreading the positive things that we are doing, because society already have this perception of us as Black men, that we are negative, that we don't take care of our family, as you just said. And if we don't show what we are doing, the good things that we're doing, that perception not only affects let's say just affects those who are not Black, but it also have the Black younger generation taking on that perception as that's who they are. And for them to have something else to see or think about themselves, they need to see more of it. So I really appreciate that perspective, because the change that we want has to start with us. We have to,
That is correct.
be
That is
willing to
correct.
talk about the positive things that we're doing, and don't leave that to be done by someone else. We need to take charge of our positive story, the positive things that we are doing. So I really appreciate that, because we already know that there's a false perception that already exists. So my next question is, what advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
I think, let me say this, and I can only go by who I am.
Yes.
I had a father, a stepfather that really made me who I am today. And then a very supportive mother who was also a role model. I think one of the things that, and I talk about role modeling, but it's key that we take that to a very serious point. We can't, when you're trying to be a role model, you cannot be a role model for a second or just a day or a month. You have to be a role model that's there to listen to those concerns. We have a tendency, the media, especially the media, takes us into a whole another level of what our Black brothers are. And a lot of times our Black brothers, unfortunately, kind of walk into that same path. And we're not all perfect, and we understand that. But I think it's important that the brothers who are doing well in the community, and when I say doing well, that doesn't mean that you're at a six-figure income. I've had people that have been more influential with young brothers who are the custodial staff at the school, who is just a wise brother who knows what it takes to work hard and provide for himself and his family. And I think that is the whole perception, is that I got to be rich to be successful. I've got to be at this level to do these things. No, you don't have to be. If you are a brother that is taking care of his business, then you can be a mentor. You can be that person that they understand more coming looking at you, because they're saying, well, if he is encouraging me to do these things, and but he's not really making a lot of money, but he is still using that wisdom that he's had to really say, hey, you need to do better than me. And that was one of the things that both my father and my stepfather always instilled in me, was to make sure that I was better than they were. One was a businessman, which was my stepfather. One was an educator, which was my dad. But they kept striving, trying to say, you need to be better than me.
Yeah.
And that is the same sense that I strive for my son. You need to be better than me. You need to be going after more things and more opportunities than what I did, because that's the next generation. That's the next CEOs, COOs, CFOs. They are, for me and where I am now in my life, I'm on that down. And but if you're not able to inspire these young folk and get where they are, sometimes you have to get where they are for them to really be able to understand. And I say that, and I'm just gonna just harp on this just for a second.
Okay.
I think one of the key things that I learned, and that a lot of our young folks have not learned, they really do not understand the historical and the things that our Black brothers and sisters went through to be able to provide them the opportunities that they have today. I am a person that's living, a 60-year-old man, that I experienced some things as a child that none of my kids will ever experience. When they gave us, when I entered the first grade, they gave us school of choice. Well, of course, most of the kids still went to the Black kids that went to Black schools. The white kids that went to white schools. They did not start busing until I was in the third grade.
Wow.
There are things that they have no idea and no experience. So I think it's important for them to be able to understand where we've been and the things that our race of people went through to get us to this point. and then be able to take it and then run with it from that level. No, we're not. We don't want you to be the civil rights. No, we're not talking about that. But you still need to understand what happened in the 60s. I experienced that as I was a young child, but I experienced that. You need to understand what happened in the 70s, what happened in the 80s, how Black folks really were able to finally become part of this political system that we have. How Black folks were able to just go from being a doctor or lawyer just for Black folk to now being a doctor and lawyer for all folk.
Yeah.
That was a transition. And so I think it's important that they understand where we've come from, understand where we are now, and then be able to take it to a whole nother level for the next 15, 20, 25, 30 years, because they are our future. And we know that when we look at statistics, the Black and brown folk are basically increasing in population. And so you have to be able to understand that increase in population and be able to take advantage of it.
You shared a lot of interesting perspective from us realizing that it's not a one-time thing in regards to being a role model. It has to be something that we do consistently. We have to do it over and over. And another thing that you share that is really important that we do, that we go where they are, because they may not come to us. And if we see where we can make a difference, because it's all about making the difference so they can be more than what we are today, as you shared. So sometimes we have to go where they are and encourage them to aspire to achieve more than we achieve, because we have to be okay with those coming behind us achieving more than us. That to show we are doing the work. And if they're going to outshine or do more, that's fine, because that's how it should be. So those are really great perspective for us as men to have. If we're going to be role models, we don't do it today and change tomorrow. We do it today and every day. And
That's correct.
sometimes, we have to go in those spaces to let the young men see us in those spaces, that we will come and let you know what you need to do to be the best you. So I really appreciate those perspectives, because I think they are really important as we think about creating positive change. So my next,
let me say
ahead.
this before you go to the next question. And never let, one of the things we have to encourage our young brothers, never let the environment in which they're raised in determine where they go.
Man, say that again. That's powerful.
Never let the environment determine where they can go. I've seen it. I've got he's really a son now, but he started out as a mentee, and I saw the environment that he was raised in, and now I see where he is. Not only has a college degree, has a master's, and is in management for a major retail outlet. Wow. So it's not about where you start from. It's about what you do and how you move it. And I'm telling you, when people see that you are serious about moving and taking an opportunity and an advantage of it, you're going to find people that are going to help. You're going to find it.
Yes. And I really love that. I'm really glad that you shared that, because you find young men on campus at times think they have to behave like the community they're coming from, and not realizing that that's just a habit that you pick up. You can change that.
Correct.
That doesn't determine who you are. So I really appreciate that you share that perspective. And I hope the listeners, even if this is not for you, whenever you come across a young man, you can let them know that despite their environment, they still have the ability within them, they may not know yet, but that they can do and achieve great things. So I really appreciate that. So my next question, and most of the questions are kind of close, tied together. So, but this question is, how can we as Black men help to change the narrative today? And you can choose from which perspective of the narrative that you want to talk about.
We're going to have to do our part.
Okay.
And when I say our part, my dad used to always say, you're going to have to walk, you're going to have to talk the walk or walk the talk.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I think that I gained a lot of respect on the 3 college campuses that I worked on. It was because I was very honest, straightforward, but I also wanted to make sure that I looked like that they needed to look like.
Yeah.
A lot of times people didn't understand, and I used to compliment you.
Yes.
A lot of times people will say, okay, why are you wearing a suit?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
because I'm in a professional environment. And a lot of times people don't understand because that particular young brother might have never ever seen anybody in a suit.
Yeah.
And so it's important that they're able to see, other than what they see on TV, they're able to see somebody that they can touch and feel and be that model for them. Always say, yes, it's okay to look up to your professional athletes, your entertainers. It's great. But we all know that there's a small percentage of our young brothers that are going to be able to reach that level.
Yes.
And so even as good as they might be either on the field or the court or rapping or singing, there's still a small percentage. So the people they come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, especially when they're at colleges and universities, even in high schools, those are the people that they need to be looking at and modeling their lives after. My grandfather was a principal, and it was old school, but it was a purpose and a reason of why he wanted to do it. Every man in that school that was a teacher wore a shirt and tie.
Yeah.
And the reason he did that, he was trying to instill in those young brothers that there is more out there than picking cotton. There's more out there than being any kind of hard labor. There are more opportunities that are out there. And that was the reason he did it. It was basically giving them a model to look at and to say, hey, I can be just like that person. And so I think that it's important that we as African American men, we model. We got to understand a professional athlete, 9 times out of 10, they can be good guys, good young ladies, but they have been in a whole different situation as far as people always pulling on them and things like that. We know that most entertainers will tell you, man, I just do this for entertainment. This ain't how I live.
That's right.
I might be out here rapping and saying all kinds of languages and all this, but guess what? I don't live in the hood anymore. I'm living in a big old house that's not the hood. They don't want to be in the same situation. So the thing is, the same thing with the sports. You got to be able to look beyond. Again, I go back to what I said, environment.
Yes.
But it's important that the people that you come in contact with, that the positive role models, be it doesn't matter who they are, but those are the people you inspire to be like. I go back to some of my days in high school, and there was a custodial, man, I liked him a whole lot. No, he didn't have all the education, but man, that dude had more wisdom than a whole lot of folk with a whole lot of degrees. And he would sit down, he would talk to us, and he would just let us know, you all are the first to be able to do this. You're the first to be able to do this. Take this, don't play with it. Take this seriously and do the best that you can be. He said that when 3 of us, and tells you now, this is 1977.
Wow.
Me and 2 of my friends decided we wanted to go into the Key Club, which is part of Kiwanis International at my high school. They had never had a Black person in Key Club.
Wow.
And so we said, hey, let's go see what they're doing. We were in the 10th grade. And we went to the meeting, and he told us then, he said, you all are making strides that nobody else is going to understand.
Wow.
And by the time we were seniors, we were all in leadership roles in the Key Club. A number of us were SGA president, senior class president.
Wow.
I mean, we were doing more than just athletics. And it's been happening ever since. And so it's really, like I said, that model person, hey, it could be anybody
Yep.
that really takes an interest in you and wants to see you do better.
Yes, and again, you share some really interesting points from being the model and be okay with it. I try to do this every day. This is how I show up. I have students come to my office just to say hello. I know sometimes it's more than just to say hello because I try my very best not only to tell them what I believe they can do and achieve, but I actually try to show up as that person every single day. And as you said yesterday, I gave away some suits and I was there. And when, man, you should see the smile on these guys' face. And they said, sir, after he got the suit, he said, sir, man, tomorrow I'm going to look like you.
And, and you think about it, that was the reason that we came up with the clothes closet at
yes,
Lincoln University in Missouri. It was really to take students out of wearing their baggy clothes all the time, but understanding that you can wear a suit and you can look good in your suit. So, and it's about really training. Also, when you talk about modeling, it's about training.
yeah,
And one of the things that's very key, our young men have to be prepared, especially those that are going on to college and they have job opportunities. They have to be prepared from the day they walk in there. And they have to realize that they're not only representing themselves, they're representing their families, they're representing the college or university in which they attended, they're representing grandma, grandpa, uncle, auntie, because they might not have ever had these opportunities. And so you have to take all of that very serious from the standpoint, I'm going in here and I'm going to give it my 150%. And when I walk out of here with this job, I'm going to be praised not only for my accomplishment, but my family is going to be excited. And I tell you, that's why I get so excited about HBCU graduations,
yeah,
because a lot of those folks and family members that come in groves, man, they didn't have that opportunity. So they are excited that somebody from their family, we still got first generation graduates.
yeah,
And that's real. In 2022, we still got folks that are just first gens.
yeah.
And so it's more than just you yourself, but again, it starts from that person who you model yourself after. And then you take that and you do the same thing. You just don't take it and say, hey, I made it. No,
Yeah.
you go back and you grab somebody and so they can do the same. And that is the way that you've seen a lot of African American brothers become very successful. They grab each other and they're not ashamed to it. My wife gets on me all the time. She said, baby, you sure do help a lot of folk. You help them with jobs and higher ed. You trying to help them with their resumes, because I want to see them accomplish. I want to see them do extremely well. I've been blessed. And so I want to be able to bless others to have the opportunity to do well.
Man, that's important. And just to go back to the point, as you said, to really wrap up that question in regards to changing the narrative, we have to model what we want to see and help others to model the same so they can now become an inspiration, being that we are an inspiration to them. So we have to get in the habit of modeling, walking the talk, so those around us can see something different from what they may have seen in their community. As you mentioned, the environment, sometimes they think that's who they're supposed to be their entire life because of the environment, and they're not limited by the environment. So I really appreciate that perspective and just a lot of wisdom in what you shared earlier. So my next question is, what or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on? Not the current path, but you have done 20 plus years in education. So who have influenced or inspired you to go on that path?
It really, I guess it's a whole group of folk.
Okay.
Everyone that is in my family always says I remind them of my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather was an educator. grew up in Arkansas. He wanted to make some changes. He was very voiceful. He was, back in the day, you couldn't be a school teacher, and if you joined NAACP, they had issues with it. And he told them basically, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And he did. And so I think even though I was young when he passed on, I think that I have, through my father, I really instilled a lot of his ways. Then my dad, who was a long-term educator, educated for 40 plus years,
Wow.
I watched him, and it was kind of crazy. My family, my mother was a college professor, but my family did not want me to go into education.
Oh, wow.
And the reason for it was that at that point in time, it's not great, but at that point in time, educators didn't make a lot of money. And so they wanted me to pursue things that would be money.
Yeah.
And so they really didn't encourage me to do education. But my dad, and then my stepfather. My stepfather came in my life, really, I think I was about 13, 14. He and my mom didn't get married until I was 18, but he was a business owner. And I just started watching him and what he did, but he was not a bragging business owner. He owned a landscaping company. He had contracts with the banks, churches. He had a crew. But if you ever saw him, you would never know he had anything. But he was the one that had the money more so than really the folk who had the education. He did not have a college degree and all of that, but he always encouraged me to do the right thing. So those were the influences that I had for me to really. I did corporate at first, and I did go into corporate. I worked for two major corporations. I was like, I don't like this as much. And then I caught the education bug. And that's what I did for 27, almost 28 years. I love to teach. I love to see people be able to grasp information and be able to take it to a whole nother level. I've never been a lecturer per se. I like to be able to give examples and then get their feedback. But those were the folk. And then, of course, as time gone on through education, there have been so many influences in my life, and that have been other educators. And as I you talk about them, you talk about the George Hertz, who is in Arkansas. You talk about the Doris Robinson Gardner, who was a major influencing and actually getting me in higher education. If it had not been for her, I probably would have stayed in K through 12. But she was the dean of the graduate school at Jackson State. And she said, hey, I got some opportunities for you. And there you have it. And of course, as I went into administration, I had an opportunity to work for several presidents. And my first president was Dr. Ronald Mason. And I just loved the way he managed, his whole management style. And then I had the opportunity to go to a smaller institution and at Jarvis Christian University now, and worked for Dr. Lester C. Newman. And I really understood from how education and business can come together, because you're talking about an institution that didn't have state funds. He had to run a very tight budget, but you still had to be able to do the same things that you would be able to do at a larger institution. And so I really learned a lot from him. And then I had the opportunity, to work with Dr. Gerald Woolfolk, who at Lincoln University, Missouri, who I'd known for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And really her care for students and all of those things. So I've had a grasp of number of folks that have been there, and I've kind of leaned on them. Gerald Peoples is one. He's a retired guy, but his influence across the country among HBCUs, he's really the reason why I stayed at HBCUs when I had opportunities to go to predominantly white institutions. But Gerald Peoples was the reason that I actually really stayed at HBCUs. He felt that people like me would be more of an influence, more of a connection with our students and getting them to another level. And so that's really why I stayed at HBCUs, because of Gerald.
Man, and I think that's really important. And the students need people not only just to be in the position, but someone that they can connect to, or someone who's willing to understand the students and help them to elevate. Because that's important. It's not just sit there and stuff like that. It's to be able to help those students to elevate. One, to make those connections with those people. But I could see a lot of you had a lot of people that you have learned from whilst in education, from your grandfather to your father. So it's like it's in the blood.
Yeah, it's in the blood. It's definitely in the blood.
So that's good. Although at first, as you said, they weren't being paid a lot. But I can, just from what you shared, especially if your grandfather did it, then your father did it, it must have been love.
It is a love, and my middle son is in education,
Oh man, that's
and
good.
and so he is the fourth generation in education,
That's
and
right.
it's really, and I watch him, how he really has a love for students and wanting to help them. He's a middle school English teacher, and he's a high school coach, and so he is really, especially he's well, football and basketball, but he really zooms in and really wants to see those kids do extremely well. So yeah, he continues that trend on. He definitely
Yes,
does.
yes, yes. It seems as if it's going to continue, man. It's there in the blood. It's there in the blood. So that's good, and especially with the need for Black men in education. So that's always a good thing. As they said, it's only 2% of us who are in education. So that's a great thing that he stepped in that role to continue serving others. So my next question is, what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
Wow. This depends on who you ask. Unfortunately, we've seen, and I can say this being in Jackson, Mississippi. For those who might not know, Jackson is a predominantly Black city. Crime has upped, I mean, tremendous since I've been back. And this year, they've already surpassed last year's numbers, and we're in October. Again, we are killing our own, unfortunately. And so I think that when you talk about perception, that's what people see. People see that perception on TV. They hear about it each and every day. I'm always talking with my younger son, Justin. It's really tough on these young brothers and sisters that are out here. It's really tough. They're faced with not only all of the things, but they're faced with the whole stigma. And I always say, when he leaves the house, I always say, be careful, because we know that where we live, you can be stopped by an officer. And I always tell people this: it ain't just the white officers, and they just look at you as a young Black male. If you're driving something nice, it just really, that whole perception. And so, as I mentioned to you before we got on, we just do not promote the good and positive things of our young brothers. And I'm talking about surpass the athletics. Now, I think from now until, we will always talk about those young brothers who are doing well from an athletic standpoint, because that is just the nature of who we are in the country we live in. When you look at the number of sports athletes, you start from all the way to my grandson who's playing at 6, and you go all the way up to my son who's 17, who plays football, but you even surpass all of that, college and then professional. That's something that that's just something that we pray. But we don't praise as much as a young Black male that might score 30 on the ACT.
Yeah.
We don't praise as much about a young brother who really struggled and then found themselves and did extremely well.
Wow.
We just don't do that. And I think that is something, and that's why I was really into what you're doing, Richard.
Man, thank
That
you.
is really where the impact is of Black men.
Yeah.
It's not the professional athletes. Again, yes, they're there, but it's a small percentage, It's a small percentage of entertainers. But we have got to do more praising of our kids who just basically are there and trying to do the best they can do. And that is even from the standpoint, even for those who decide not to go to college. So, what do you do with those? You need to encourage them to get involved in some kind of career. And it might be a vocational career, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I learned that a long time ago. Everybody is not college material. But again, you still want to be able to encourage them to be able to do something and find out what their niche is and what their interest is. Man, I can never go fix a car. But you know, these mechanics are making major money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's a vocational degree. That's not me. They now, even here with Nissan, they have a program at one of the community colleges that basically teaches them how to work with robotics at Nissan and be able to handle all of that. And guess what? Those same young folk are hired but to Nissan. So it's not about a college degree. When we look at the field in which we're in, when we talk about allied health, there right now is a shortage of nurses across the entire country. And when we say nurses, we're talking about everything else from an LPN or RN to a CNA, phlebotomist. There is a shortage in health, period.
Wow.
So why not encourage someone to get into a certificate program, be able to do well, but also be able to walk away not only with that certificate, but also with a job.
Wow.
And so the thing is that it's really about encouraging people to just do something, not sit around, not hanging out in the corner. No, do something. You don't have to go to college. There's so many other opportunities that you can do. And so that's one of the things that we've done at our school. I mean, we have we have a number of our students that have a GED, but we have taken them, we've worked with them in the short time frame that we have them. And it's amazing seeing the white coat ceremony. It's amazing. It's like graduation from a college university because people are ecstatic about them receiving this certificate. And then to take on top of that, we try to be able to provide opportunities for them by having the VA hospital at our white coat ceremony or the University of Mississippi Medical Center at our white coat ceremony that are hiring folk right there on the spot. Nice. So it's really, to me, it's not that you have to have a college degree, but it's more so that you're able to do something and contribute to yourself, your family, and the community in which you live in. I think that is the key. When I talk about crime, when people talk about crime all the time, that is the key. Most of these folks that are committing crime, they're young, they're dropouts, they have no direction, and they're just out there doing what they see somebody else doing. And guess what? They just happen to get caught.
Yeah.
And so, and again, as I say this, they ain't going over to certain neighborhoods doing all this. They're doing it right. They're robbing our own folk. They're killing our own folk. And it makes no sense to me. But again, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. People understanding and our folks understanding where we've been and the things that we suffered to get there. And a lot of our young folk, because they've taken it out of school, a lot of the young folk really don't understand our history
Yeah.
and have no clue of our history. So I think it's important for us to be able to really be able to be those models. Again, I keep saying models, and I'll continue saying those models.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go back on one point that I really believe that needs to not just address, but where we are killing ourselves. That's one thing that we need to change within our community. We need to be uplifting each other, helping each other, supporting each other, not killing each other. And if we're going to progress, we have to do that. And just to be that example or that model, as you said, because saying it and doing it is two different things. So once we say it, we need to model it and help those who may not see an option see that option through us. And you also said another very important point that I believe needs to be encouraged and encouraged early in our young, well, students on a whole, but especially our young men, that you don't have to go to college to be successful or have a good life. There are a lot of different opportunities out there that are available. If it is something that you're passionate about, yes, you can pursue it. And we just have to create those avenues for those students to see options and strive to achieve those options. So this next question kind of ties to the one previously about change in society, our current climate. But what change do you want to see in general among Black men?
Family oriented.
Family, that's a that's really a good one and an important
Family
one.
oriented. Yes.
Yeah, good and
You
important.
know, it used to be back in the day, we would use the term the village.
Yeah.
And didn't make a difference if it was the neighbor or auntie, uncle, family oriented and respect of others. This generation that we're in, I see it all the time. And unfortunately, I think that's half of they don't have respect for themselves. And it's kind of hard for them to respect others. But as we know, in a family oriented situation, mothers have always had assistance. I always say it's like people think that they were just single mothers just created 25 years ago. There have been single mothers, God, since the turn of the century. But it took that village to help raise those kids. And I think now people need to really look back and look at that village. And that village can be a multitude of people. It could be family, but it could be friends, it could be neighbors. But that village is really something that I really would love to see again. I think that we are just a little bit hesitant as people to say certain things to certain people because we're not sure how they're going to react. For example, when we're on a college campus and of course, as administrators, we can tell you to pull your pants up and we don't worry about that. But if you're out there on the streets and you see a young man that has his pants down, you're a little bit more hesitant not to say something, even though you want to say something.
Yeah.
You basically don't want to say it because of that respect. So it's really bringing back those family values and the respect that once was. It was nothing for us growing up. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. We gave that respect. And I think that is the thing that is missing now is the family and the respect.
Yeah, I think being family oriented is really important because that also forms a foundation and give the next generation something to build on. I think that's very important, and respect
Yes.
is vital as we go forward. And just as Black men, as we talk about change, talk about what we're going to do in society, and even how others perceive us, because respecting ourselves will encourage others to respect us. Because it starts with self-respecting us, then we'll respect each other. And that will help to change how we are perceived in society. So my next question is, what was a pivotal moment in your life?
Man, there've been so many. I really think it's it's really watching the success of my kids. Now it's really watching my oldest son, really listening to him, and just I just sit back and just listen. This is a young man that college was not for him, but he figured out what he wanted to do. He strived on it, and he went out and got a technical degree, and went out and got all of these certificates, and which I don't even know what the heck they are. But he is a advertisement graphic guru.
Wow.
He works for a major corporation and is in management with them and is doing extremely well on the East Coast. Just watching him, watching my daughter do her thing as a nurse in Houston, and seeing her, both of them now have their own homes. I mean, it's just watching that. Those are things that make me excited. Watching my other daughter in Michigan, watching her be, I mean, she loves her daughters, my granddaughters. She is done extremely well. And that is her number one thing. She wants to do well career wise, but those girls are really her key. Watching my son, as I mentioned before, become that fourth generation. Watching my other daughter, really seeing her grow, especially the last year or so, as a person, as a mother, and now really looking for career wise and really zoning in on what she really wants to do. She started a nonprofit, and so watching her as she wants to work with young people and ensure they have certain things in place. That to me is just that's like almost another part of me. And then the two youngest, just really watching them grow from a high schooler to a middle schooler, and just really taking advantage of all the opportunities that are there for them. That to me is really the most important thing to me, other than my wife, who really keeps me on my toes, because she just starts thinking about stuff and starts say, can we do this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And she has the same kind of, she has a feeling just like me. She wants to help others, and she wants to make sure people have opportunities that some people said you couldn't do. So those to me, that family, that's it in a nutshell. Family is the pivotal thing for me. I think again, as you get older, you start realizing what's important, and it's great to have all of the things. But what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do with our kids is really set up the legacies for them to be able to continue and be able to bring that to their own children. With our foundation, our kids sit on our foundation board because we want to teach them about giving. We want to teach them about being able to recognize there are other folk out there that might not have the same opportunities and benefits. So they're all on the foundation board. And so I think it's just really an opportunity for really leaving legacies. And hopefully they will in turn leave legacies for my grandkids. And in turn, the legacies continue. And again, this all started with a man named Reuben Chaney. And he left a legacy. So it's really about continuing the legacy. Even my wife's grandfather, he left a legacy of business. I mean, he was solid here in Mississippi.
Wow.
And one of the things was he was in a small little town. People didn't realize that raising chickens, but when you have a major contract with a company like a Tyson, you can reap benefits from that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really that's what we're really all about, is really laying the opportunities. And in the midst of all of that, we try to help others. We try to help others. and hopefully they will in turn help their families. And I go back to family, and like I said, when you get my age, you just start looking at, wow, and then you start saying, how can I spread the love? And that love can be with the family, or it could be former students. It's just spreading the love.
As you share, I was just listening to those pivotal moments. You've seen your son, you've seen your daughter, or your sons and daughters just making their move has been pivotal moment. That in itself maybe show some of the things that you have done correctly to inspire them, but just to see them in their own light is a great thing. I know all parents do love to see those things, especially when their kids become of age and start to walk in their own light. So I think that's important. Again, it stems from some of the things that you have done correctly to inspire them to want to be their best self. So my next question is, what life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
Everybody is not everybody. I don't know if that makes sense or not. What I've learned, I always thought that you need to have this degree to be successful. But I learned not only from my oldest son, oldest child actually, but I learned that it's really not about that. It's really about doing the things that are going to make you happy.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've learned, and I say that, I kind of go back, every child is different. So all of ours are different. And I realized that maybe my parents should have pushed me more into education, but they pushed me to money.
Yeah.
And didn't make me happy. And so when I came back to the love of education, it really put a whole different spin around it. And so what I've learned really in the last few years is that you got to do what makes you happy. You got to do the things. If you make a lot of money doing it, great. If you don't make a lot of money, but you're able to take care of yourself, your family, great. We're in a society now, everybody is supposed to be a multimillionaire. We would have a whole lot of multimillionaires.
That's right. That's right.
And so do what's going to make you happy. Do what's going to be your strength. I think that is the key to everything. If it means that a college degree is not there, that's fine. But if it means that you're still making a commitment and a contribution to the community in which you live in, that's what it's all about. I think it's really, bottom line is that we as a people just need to be happy. We don't need to try to be, as my folks used to always tell me, and this is an old thing, don't try to be like the Joneses. Just be you. And then let's kind of work with who you are. And I really emphasize a lot with that. Just be who you are and be the best that you can be in who you are. And that's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think again some really important points in perspective, because especially the last part, but start off with your passion, and that you don't have to go to a college, as you use your son as an example, but it stems down to passion. Find what you love, and even yourself, you were pushed to go into something that will provide you more money, but you go in and realize that this is not what I'm supposed to do. This doesn't feel good. And then you find yourself in education, and then you fell in love by being there. So I think as we hear, and the listeners, it starts with your passion. What do you love to do? And don't think because they tell you or tell us that this is what going to make you the most money, You always need to go towards what you will enjoy doing, because you may make the money and don't enjoy spending it. Because, well, you may enjoy spending it, but you don't enjoy the process because you don't like the environment or really what you are doing. So I think pursuing your passion is really important. And I think that's where we'll make more impact, because we'll have more drive
Correct. Correct.
to do it.
And actually, a lot of times when you're pursuing your passion, it takes a little while,
Yes.
but you can make big money pursuing your passion.
Yes.
So it's just really believing in what you think is what you should be doing. And I've just learned that as a parent over the years. I just sit back and I just listen and give some directions. And the same thing I do with people that I'm still mentoring that are in higher education. They ask me multiple questions, and I always say, well, where's your passion? Don't get into something that you don't really have a passion for. Well, I tell people, if you're going to be a fundraiser, but you don't have a gift to gab, that's not who you should be.
That's
Because
right.
as a fundraiser, you got to have a gift to gab. You got to be able to talk all the time and know what the heck you're talking about.
Yes.
So just do what is best for you as a person, and everything else will work out itself.
And I think that's important and a great reminder to everyone that's listening. And again, some of the messages and the pointers and the perspective that is shared is not always for you, the listener, but it's for you to help somebody else who may not be hearing this right now. So share the knowledge with others. So before I ask my final question, I want you to share where the listeners can find you, support you, and just to be a part of what you're doing to continue helping others.
So they are welcome to come to our websites, B1 Ventures and Holdings Incorporated, Mississippi School of Health Services and Careers, all of our webs, B1 Foundation. So they're welcome to come to our websites, see what we're doing. We've got a lot going on. I'll be quite honest with you. We're about to add some addition to our home care business that we're excited about. We're looking at expanding out of the state. The school is really, really striving. I use that old higher ed, and we were able to really increase our student enrollment this year. Last year, we averaged somewhere between 5 and 10 students per cohort. This year, we're averaging around 50, 55 students per cohort. Yeah, a lot of that is called Canvas. And so we offer all of our academic programs on Canvas. And then, of course, they have to do skills in person. And then some of the programs require clinicals. But the actual itself, the teaching, it's actually done via Canvas platform. Foundation, we have given, I've been very blessed to know some right folk. And so we brought in some monies. We've been able to really assist all of our students with scholarships to assist them. And then we're getting ready to do a major night out with the homeless, again, with a couple of organizations. Mississippi Move is one. My fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, is another one. And this is something that we do every year. And we started contributing to that last year. And just really the whole homeless situation in the city is crazy, just as it is in a lot of other cities across this country, the number of people that are now homeless. So we're getting ready to do that sleep out all night with them. And
Wow.
you hear some interesting stories, to say the least.
Oh, wow.
But we're excited about that. And then we're getting ready for with her philosophy. My wife's organization is in the process of getting ready to do the second I Am Women's Empowerment Conference. We're really getting excited about that. And then, as I told you about Mid-South Sports and Education Group, I mean, there's some things that are really on the rise with that.
Okay.
We'll be coming out publicly in January, first quarter, and we've already signed some athletes already in advance, and we have some schools under contract already, but we'll be pushing that out. That's a great team of most of these guys I have mentored professionally. They'll be doing a lot of the consulting. Both of my sons, older sons, are involved in that arena also. So we've got a lot going on, but we are extremely blessed. I have to say that there's no way we could do all the things that we are doing right now without God. There's just no way. I know that that's just the honest truth. And so we are blessed. We think we got a great team, and again, it's something that my wife kind of she was the one that kind of was the one that birthed everything, and we're just taking it to a whole nother level. So that's kind of where we are, and we're as we'll be doing more and more. My wife has just become part of the Forbes Council, and so that's major. She just wrote her first article, contributing article to Forbes. So we're looking forward to seeing that published. So there's a lot going on, man. I tell you, it's been exciting to say the least. And most people know me, know how engaged and involved I am in the community with my fraternity, and then with the 100 Black Men of Jackson Inc. And just trying to do some things in the city just to make a difference. And hopefully the small things that we do will make major differences in our community.
Man, I think, yeah, you're doing great, and just helping others is just something that there's no, what you'd say now, cap you can put on that, because there's no measure for helping others, because where there's a need, and it's always appreciated. So there's no cap to go on helping others, because helping others is always one of the greatest things that we can do with our time here on earth.
That's true.
And to help others. So man, I'll definitely put your link so they can find you, whichever platform, and they can take it from there to reach out to you with the many things that you're doing that are making a difference. So I'll definitely share this. So my final question is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
Wow. I think you said it. The one thing that I try to strive for is really helping others. That is something that I've strived for in everything that I've done. Professionally, working at 3 different HBCUs, I know that I've made a difference in a lot of folks' lives. And really and truly, I am just, when I see them on Instagram and LinkedIn, it brings excitement. I was just to give you an example, young lady who was a student when I was dean of students at Jackson State before I became the vice president. She is now the vice president.
Oh, wow.
She just came back. And I mean, that alone is what you really strive for, let alone watching all these other students that I've seen at all 3 institutions do extremely well. Lincoln, I see Curtis Burton. I see this brother. He was a senior when I first arrived at Lincoln University in Missouri. He was looking for a graduate program. I made a phone call. Hey, I need this brother at this program. What can he do? University of Toledo. Went on, and now he's the dean at Lincoln University, Missouri. Yeah. You know, those are the things that I try to do. I strive myself on being able to pick up the phone, and I hadn't upset too many folk across the country. And pick up the phone and say, hey, I got this person. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. And I've just been blessed to do that from a professional standpoint. From a personal standpoint, I think that I've been in my fraternity now for 40 years. And I am in the midst of kind of becoming an old retiree with the fraternity. I'm coming out as the International Director of Education this summer, next summer, I should say, in Houston. But again, everything that I have done with the fraternity and all the positions I've held in the fraternity, I've tried to make sure that I've given more than what the previous person has done. We've increased the number of scholarships that we're given. They already know I'm going to ask for some more money this upcoming year. We've increased the number of people that have even applied for the scholarships. We have looked out for giving awards for our Teachers of the Year, giving awards for those alumni chapters to adopt schools in their communities. And so when you talk about that, 100 Black men, I just kind of sit back and I watch the number of young men I've had an opportunity to mentor and watch how successful they are. All of those things really play a part of who I am. But more importantly than all of those things, I go back to when the Lord says it's time, that I was a good family person. And that to me is for my kids, for my wife, that with all the things I had going on, and I always say this, they have been there to support it. And I know a lot of times they probably gotten tired, but again, it's really about making ways and making opportunities for them to be able to do some of the things that they've been able to do. And so as I look back and I get excited, told you my oldest son he has his home, and my oldest daughter has, my middle daughter, she's actually middle, has her home. Then I listen to my oldest daughter, that's what she's striving for. That's the thing. The whole deal is that they will be able to be people that will be able to make a difference in other people's lives. And that is the thing that I really want to leave. That type of legacy of helping others, both professionally, personally, but more so being able to be that model for my kids. It's really, they're spoiled. I will agree, but it's still it's that makes the biggest difference to me.
Yes, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. In most of the stuff all the things that you have shared, you have been helping others. And again, I will say helping others is one of the most important thing that we can do as people. There's nothing really higher than that. So it's, and personally or professionally, with your family or with others, helping others is one of the best thing that we can do with our time. A friend of mine, I would say mentor, would always say, service we provide is the rent we pay for our time on earth. And it's something that I will always remember because that's what we're here for.
That's right.
To help others. So, Dr. Chanay, man, it was a pleasure having a conversation with you, hearing your perspective. And I know the listeners have gained something from it. I know I have. And so it's a pleasure having you here. Thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you.